Hey there, you're listening to the Girls Talking Life podcast, and I'm your host, Johanna. If you're like me, you love time with friends. I always leave feeling encouraged, inspired to try something different, or I've learned something new. So why not continue to grow even when we can't be with our girlfriends? We're not made to do life on our own, so in each episode of this show, I'll bring you a girl and her story to give you refreshing ideas to stir your soul. Let's walk this road together. Are you ready to talk life? Hey friends, I can't believe it, but this is the last episode of 2018. Thank you so much if you've been tuning in and listening. Your support means so much to me. I just wanted to read a couple of the reviews from iTunes. Carrie S. Lewis says, "Love this podcast, real ladies speaking real life truths. Great job." Son of Eric says, "I love deep diving into women's stories and am so inspired by those I've heard on this podcast so far. Johanna is a gifted interviewer and I can't wait to hear more from her." I appreciate that so much. I just wanted to tell you that those words are too kind. I am only doing what I feel like I've been called to do for right now, and I am new, I'm inexperienced, and anything good that you're hearing is from my guests and from God. So thank you so much for your kind words. Thank you for your support. And thanks for listening. My guest today is Lori Mercer. Lori is a successful online business entrepreneur. She trains women to be virtual professionals, and she also has clients of her own. She started a nonprofit organization that supports marriages and families of first responders. We talk about how she left the corporate world for what she does now. And we also take a deep dive into some personal topics for Lori, like a recent divorce and her walking alongside her daughter in her battle of anorexia. Lori is so full of knowledge, and she transparently shares about all these things with us today. If you are a single mom, a full-time working mom who is ready to leave her corporate job, if you are a stay-at-home mom but you're ready to get back into the workforce, if you're the wife of a first responder, this show is for you. I hope you enjoy Lori and I's conversation. Good morning, Lori. Thank you so much for joining me on Girls Talking Life.
Well, you're welcome. I'm super excited to be here and glad you asked.
Would you start by introducing yourself to everybody?
Sure. Lori Mercer, and I'm a mom of four. I am a newly single mom of four, and I run an online business. You can find it at lorimercercto.com. I do a number of things, but I'm a freelancer in the online business world, and I also train up women to be VAs and virtual professionals. Along the way, I have founded and still lead a nonprofit. And gosh, I've had so much life happen to me in the past 24 months that I never saw coming. So we can just get into that and talk about that. How's that?
That sounds good. I wanted to start by telling you that, you're a little farther along in the parenting realm than I am. Your youngest and my oldest are the same age. So that's kind of how we know each other. And so I look up to you in that respect. And then also you've had a corporate job, a successful career there, and then you've started some businesses. So I just always am kind of really interested to hear what you have to say, and I'm excited about our conversation today.
Good. Me too. And the older I get, I'm 46. I just put it out there. It's starting to feel a little older, but the older I get, the more I just love mentoring women. I wasn't going to cry. I have a feeling I might cry today. I'm glad this is not video, but because when I look back to my years of child rearing and marriage and corporate, I just realized I did not have enough women mentors in my life. So I'm super happy to be here and share with you.
Well, let's start off by you talking about your corporate career and then why you chose to leave.
Awesome. My journey started pretty typically, right? I went to Ohio State, got an engineering degree, got a great job out of college. And, I loved work. I always knew I was going to work. I also always knew I was going to be a mom. But the career path developed. I worked for a great company for 22 years even. And I just had great people around me. I had great projects. It really aligned for a lot of years, and they were super flexible. I mean, 4 kids, right? Like that is 4 times of being pregnant, maternity leave, ramping back up. So that was a good experience for me. But, obviously 4 kids, I mean, any number of kids and working out of the home is a challenge.
Yes.
So, when I had my first son, who's now 18 and in college, and immediately I had this tension of like, oh my gosh, I want to be home with him. And it kind of took me by surprise because I loved my job. I loved my career. And obviously I went back, but there's this whole thing, like when you have a baby and you hold that newborn, you are like, I am never leaving this child.
Yes.
I am never leaving him. And then, you kind of get into your groove, you get your health back, and the baby gets a little bigger and you let people start holding them. And actually out of the gate for me, Jackson was a 10-week early preemie, and I spent the first 30 days in the hospital. And that was not in the plans. I had a plan and that was not in the plans, right? So things got shook up pretty quickly there. So I went back at that point. I absolutely went back because I actually am twice divorced. So let's just put that out there. Jackson's dad was not working and I was the only income earner. So
you had to.
Right. And let me tell you, there are tears upon tears leaving that little preemie. So anyways, actually we ended up divorcing pretty quickly after that because, the test of a marriage is a crisis. And that was a big crisis. That was, everything was pretty status quo until then. So then I was single mom doing the corporate rat race, right? Like daycare drop off, working a corporate job. And Jack and I were getting along pretty well in that space. But it was tough. It was really tough. I got remarried when Jackson was about 2 and had 2 more children quite rapidly. And at that point, after I had my second child, I was like, there's no way I can do this corporate thing full time, and really flexed into a part-time position. Baby number 3 came so quickly, unplanned after that. So suddenly I'm like, oh my goodness. So for about that season of my life, I had a really nice, flexible corporate job, a great boss, great projects, great people, and that works. Well, great people see great talent and just synergies, and really pulled me back into a full-time position where, it just matched my gifts. It matched my heart. It matched what I needed at the time. And I happened to have a 4th baby during that time that I was actually full-time. But at that point, I started traveling a lot internationally. And while I loved it, I loved the adventure. I love being able to see the world and seeing the different perspectives. Like it really just opens your eyes to so many limiting things we have here in America. And that's a whole different topic we can get into if you'd like to, but traveling internationally was amazing, but also a real burden for our family. So at that point, I really started going, hey, I need a plan B. I can't climb the corporate ladder any higher as a mother of 4. I really sensed that while we had au pairs and I had systems and we were making things work when they were little, as the kids got older, I needed to be home with them.
I know how much of a challenge it is for me to get away for the evening, with 2 children. So I really can't even imagine international travel with 4 kids, Lori.
Yeah. I mean, it's a team approach, right? We had au pairs living with us. My husband's job, as a firefighter was, he would work 24 on, but then be home for 48. So we had the au pair, we had him around for full days sometimes, and my mom and or dad would come when I traveled.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's a team effort. But I just knew, I'm like, when they get older, like I can't outsource that stuff. Like I need to be there when my kids walk in the door after middle school and after high school. And that instinct was so spot on. And I'm so glad I am where I am right now because of what we've been, going through as a family. But, I think that women, like if you've got a corporate job like that is flexible, if you have understanding bosses, if you feel like you're like living in alignment with your gifts and your purpose, then I think it's good to keep working it. But for me, it was those 2 things. It wasn't just the logistics of the family, but it was also that after 20 years in corporate, I could do it in my sleep. And I really felt like I had a bigger, different purpose in life than just running another technology project, running another spreadsheet, running another annual planning session. And those 2 things really pushed me hard to pull me out of my corporate career.
So what kind of a plan do you need before you just say, here's my 2-week notice?
So I always talk about having a money bridge. So for everybody that looks different. For some families, the spouse is working and making good money. And so you have the ability to just like cut back for 6 months and just transition into building your business for 6 months, because you don't normally jump straight out of I had a good job. It was a 6-figure corporate job, right? I was an executive, and you don't just jump out of that and start your own business making the same money. You need sort of a transition window. So for every family that looks different. For some people, they choose to dig into savings. For some people, they just tighten it up for 6 months. And for some people, you have to, double dip. You have to work your day job and what some people call a side hustle, or, work your part-time job. I have a statement that I share with moms, especially, that there can be only 3 main things in your life. Otherwise, you're splitting yourself too thin and you're not getting anything done well. So, one main thing is always our family. If you have a full-time job, that's your second main thing. And so that leaves 1 slot for a third main thing. And it could be a part-time job that you're building to try to pull yourself out of corporate. Some women are like into training for a marathon. I'm like, well, that's your third slot, because training for a marathon is really time intensive. Some people are really big into volunteering for, whatever church, school, whatever. So that becomes their third slot. The problem I see is that some women will start 3 part-time businesses and try to work all 3 of them to try to get out of corporate. And I don't recommend that, because you just can't split your brain that much. You have to stay focused in. So I call that the just 3. The other thing that your third could be is if there's a crisis in your family. We can talk about this more later, but I went through it, still am in, probably will be for a long time, an anorexia battle with my daughter. And that took up my third very quickly. Normal family stuff, but a special needs child or a crisis like that becomes your third. So that's kind of a rule of thumb that I give people. So to get out of corporate, back to that question, you need your money bridge, and you need your time blocking plan, and you need a viable business opportunity. And we all know, we've all Googled it in desperation, work from home, right? It is so scammy that like my work from home training is not scammy. It's legit work. But when I try to even market it on Facebook, Facebook says, oh, you're a work from home scam. And I'm like, no, I'm not. It's really legit work. So yeah, those are probably the 3 key things.
Okay. And then what was your idea? What were you going to do once you left?
Right. So when I was starting to leave, I have a computer engineering degree, but I have a ton of marketing experience. I'm kind of one of those creative techies. And I was building websites for people in email marketing, like before there was Facebook, before there was WordPress, when you had to hand code websites. So I had started doing some pro bono projects in the nonprofit space to build up my portfolio. And that was going well. I'd also thrown my hat into the ring of a couple of direct sales businesses and actually really crushed it, like flew up the ladder to director, and realized that, hey, there's some things about that business model I don't like. They can change the compensation plan at any point. The company, the marketing can take a downturn. Like if you look at the history of direct sales companies, some are a flash in the pan. And so how do you know which one you're getting into? There was another thing I didn't like about that was, to be successful with that, you have to build a big team. To build a big team, you have to sell the dream. And I realized how many hungry women were coming to me needing the dream because, they needed out of corporate or they needed extra income for their family, but they didn't have the skills to be in direct sales. They might have loved the product, but they weren't a salesperson. And that was a conflict in my heart. I'm like, I know it's a numbers game. I know I got to talk to a zillion people. I know I got to sign people up, but I also know that 95% of these people, generously 95%, are not equipped to do this job.
I found myself in that area before. Just, I love these products. It would be fun to sell it. There's potential to make money, but I am not a salesperson.
Right. You really have to know sales to do that. And I don't want to be down on direct sales companies, because I know that they have freed so many women from corporate and they have been the answer for so many people, but for so many other people, they're not. So I took that left turn for a little bit, and I was like, I realized I'm like, no, this is not where I need to be. So I went back to like, well, what are my core skills? Like, what do I love to do? What am I good at? And who do I want to help? And that came back to technology, website marketing, those pieces. So that was starting to come together as early as 2007, actually. By 2012, maybe a little before then, I was like, if I'm building these websites for people, I should have my own platform. And then I can test and play and, show them, hey, here's how you should be doing it. So for 2 weeks, I carried around a little note card that had about 10 topics on it of things that I could build as my own platform, and prayed on it. I was like, because I knew I was going to go all in on this, right? Like, that's my style. So one of them was that I'm a mom of preemies, that I like to run, that I'm a working mom, that I'm divorced, all these things. And one of them was that I'm the wife of a firefighter. During those 2 weeks, the girl who had at that time owned a small blog called firefighterwife.com sent out an email to her small list and said she needed to sell it. And I was like, there is my sign right there. So I bought it, ripped out all of her stuff because it totally wasn't my style, and rebuilt my own kind of brand and messaging into it. And long story short, that has blown up into a really large entity, over 150,000 followers online, 20,000 people on our email list. I actually rolled it into a nonprofit. So that was not the job that brought me out of corporate. We'll get back to that. It was a little bit of a detour, but it was a very purposeful one, and really filled a slot in my heart that said that wanted to be in the nonprofit space, that wanted to serve and give. And I know so many women feel that I want to give back. I want to build this nonprofit. My advice in that space now is, to be sure you have a sustainable business model there. Like, how are you going to be funded? And to maybe not count on your nonprofit as your income, because a nonprofit really is a labor of love. It's truly labor of love. We had to invest money into it to build it and to get it to where it is today. And it's amazing. It's done so many good things, but ultimately it wasn't what brought me out of corporate. However, the work that I did there and the platform that I built got me into a network of online marketing business owners and gurus, I guess. I don't use that word very much. I don't know why that came to me, but who pulled me then into like, hey, you can do this. Can you do this for us? And so now my HTML website building business had turned into a full-blown online marketing strategy and implementation business. And one client at a time, I built up my own little agency. And ultimately, that's what has replaced my corporate income.
That's so encouraging, Lori. It started with one thing and then grew into something else. I wanted to talk about firefighterwife.com just for a minute. I have heard you say that you just started it to kind of see what would happen. It was kind of something that you were going through personally. And then you found so many women were interested in this.
Right.
Can you talk just a little bit about that?
Yeah. So when you build a brand like that or a program like that, I mean, it really was a resource. Part of the beauty of that is that I just hit the market at the right time. There was nothing else out there supporting fire families. I mean, I had even personally felt it. At that point, we had been married just 10 years. The first few years of our marriage were super, super rocky. It felt like it had gotten better. Disclaimer, I'm now divorced and the founder of Firefighter Wife. So that's a whole other side topic, but it's a very, very hard life to maintain a marriage in. And hitting the market at the right time with that message that no one else had been sharing really just attracted this tribe of women who are some of my best friends still today, and knit us together in a way on a mission, like say, hey, it doesn't have to be this way. You don't have to feel alone. It is different when you're running a marriage and a family and with a first responder. And my gosh, there was just something so magical there that came together. Totally a God thing. Why would God build something like that under me, knowing I would end up divorced, right? Like it's had his hand on it the whole time, and continues to do really, really good things. So good stuff.
How do you reconcile that? How do you say, this is something I built because I believe in so much, but it didn't work out for me?
Yeah, I'm still reconciling it. This part might make me cry, so it's okay.
I'm sorry.
It's okay. You can keep it in, because, there's a lot of grief in divorce, because, it's the dying of dreams that you had. And there's a lot of grief in marriage, right? Because things that you thought it would be, it's not what it is. And it becomes clear that, the marriage, whether you stay married or not, is not going to be what you thought it was. And some marriages take a lot of selfless acts. And certainly a firefighter marriage is one of those. I think all marriages do, but the firefighter marriage is one of those. So the way I have reconciled it personally, so I've had to look at it two ways, right? Professionally, as the face of the organization, and personally, with what I'm going through. Professionally, we are using it as an opportunity to bring in new leadership, to really reinforce the message that this can happen to anybody. Like, it really makes the message more powerful. And, really it was never just about me or me and Dan in our marriage, because if you put any marriage on a pedestal, it's disaster.
Yeah.
Any marriage, and I see this actually often in the Christian church too, that we put marriage on a pedestal. Marriage is not to be on the pedestal. What is to be on the pedestal is your personal relationship with God. And if anything gets ahead of that, including that marriage, staying married is more important than honoring God, it's a disaster. So our marriage was never the one to be on the pedestal. It was a mission and a movement to build a community of people that could call each other out and could support each other, wives helping wives and husbands helping husbands, to make our marriages better. So professionally, it's an opportunity to put new leadership in, to renew that message, and to really go a level deeper with, my gosh, Lori wrote books on this, and now her marriage is broken. So what does that say? What does that say about how hard marriage is? What does that say about the stuff she already wrote? And it doesn't invalidate anything we already wrote, but I do think I was missing an element of resource there to tell the wives that, hey, it's not just all about being the best firefighter wife. You have to be the best you first. And if you're not being the best you, if you're not filling yourself up, if you're not feeling strong, you're going to break. And you breaking can break the marriage. A healthy marriage is comprised of two healthy individuals. And often a failed marriage is because there are one or two broken individuals within the marriage. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like that just reinforces the importance of being in a community like this and just getting the support that you need as a firefighter family or not.
Right. Or, it works where whatever community, speaking just to women in general, whatever community you find that is speaking truth and life and light into you is the community you need to stick with, because there's too much pulling us down every single day. And we need, as humans, like, we're sinners, we make mistakes. We need those constant reinforcements around us to remind us. So to find that in a tribe of people who understand why you're frustrated that he picked up another overtime shift, in the case of firefighter wives, is really, really priceless. And so we have worked hard to make that just encouraging, inspiring, uplifting, to avoid social media drama and all those kinds of things. And I do think that we've been successful in that. So professionally, that's how we're handling it. Personally, obviously I've had a lot of personal reflection on why I'm divorced, not just once, but twice, right? And, what part of that do I contribute? And, what I lean back on is my faith, really the same thing. Like, I need to make myself whole. We all need to make ourselves whole before we can serve well in any capacity. And I don't believe that God brought us through like all of that. Like, he's omnipresent. He knows everything, right? Like, past, future, present, like everything. So he let the fruit grow in that ministry, that marriage ministry, knowing I was going to be sitting right here having a podcast with you talking about, now I'm divorced, right? So I think it's a journey every day to learn from that. And I've already, the fact that I can sit here and talk about this now, a year later, is almost a year, we're coming up on a year, is a powerful testimony that God is going to keep doing a work in everything you touch, even when there feels like there's insurmountable mountains ahead of you.
I completely agree. It's not for nothing what you've been through.
That's right.
As a mom of 4, Lori, how do you continue to do what you do, minus one family member?
Yeah. Well, the interesting thing about all of that is, as a single mom business owner now, it's really supercharged my focus on my business. We all have the same amount of hours in a day, right? So figuring out how I'm spending those hours to make sure they are most effective is key. It's me now, solo income, raising these guys, and in some of the most expensive years, teenage years. So I think one of the big things is that the kids have watched me walk through this. Okay, this is a for sure tears moment, so let me take a deep breath. But they have watched me walk through this, and they see me cry and feel hurt, but they also see me rise and be strong, and they tell me that. So nothing like your kids saying those things to you to make you cry, right?
I love that.
Yeah, I think we can't hide it from them. I think like if your marriage is struggling, hiding that from your kids also is bad. Like they need to see how you resolve problems. They need to see how you walk through the tough stuff. And, they don't need the drama. They don't need the, he said, she said, blah, 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 but they need to understand, like, how are you processing in your mind what's going on? They obviously all have their own anxieties and anger and stresses to deal with about this, and processing that with them. I'm really big now on feeling the feeling that you're in, not letting it get out of control, but feeling the feeling that you're in and really reflecting on where it's coming from and working through it and processing it. And you grow every time you do that. So doing that along with my kids is an everyday practice for us now.
I know for Joe and I, we don't necessarily fight in front of our kids, but we don't hide it from them. And then we also want to show them like, hey, this is how, we reconciled it. This is our solution. Or, we let some time pass and now we're great. And then we also show them the other side, the affection.
That's right. That's right. They have to see it all.
They have to see the whole story.
Right. And everything, that we're doing, they are forming their own, neural pathways in their brain, literally, for patterns in their future relationships. And so there were absolutely patterns in my marriage that I do not want my sons or daughters to repeat in theirs. And those are important conversations to have, not in a way that disrespects either spouse, either of their parents, but in a way that says, hey, this probably wasn't the best way for things to develop. And here's some alternative things to think about, and to watch and to point out examples of other couples in their life that are doing it well.
I like that. I like that a lot. Lori, about a year ago, I believe I have the timing right on this, you learned that your daughter was suffering from anorexia. You mentioned it in the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
Can you just talk a little bit about that? How did you come to learn this? What did you do from there?
Sure. This is a super important topic for every woman because anorexia is a symptom. Underneath it is a core root wrong belief that we feel about ourselves. And every single woman has some sort of struggle like this. And in some women, it manifests as an eating disorder. So 2017, my dad was diagnosed with cancer and we lost him in 10 weeks. Poor tears. Man, I'm so tearful this morning. So during that time, our whole family was also struggling. The marriage was also in complete crisis then. And Maya threw herself into making the high school soccer team, which on the surface looked amazing. She was working out hard. She was eating well. She just had this goal, and it was on the surface, it was a great thing to focus on. And it can be, right? But what we did not know at the time is that she was introduced to calorie counting. She was now, entering into high school. And so she's intermixing with upperclassmen and, new things happen. So she was introduced to calorie counting. And what is a good thing for some of us, for somebody who has a tendency for something like an eating disorder to manifest, can be a disaster. So she had been restricting calories actually for about 5 months before it finally caught up with her body. And when you don't provide nourishment for your body like that, your brain obviously also gets malnourished, and it starts to look like depression, anxiety, suicidal tendencies, some very scary stuff. When she started to feel those things, she came to me. That was in about October, because it scared her. She's like, what are these thoughts? I don't know what to do with them. And at this point, I don't know. Like, she feels like she's binge eating, right? So somebody with an eating disorder is like, oh, I'm eating too much. I'm eating too much. So that's all I have to go on. And it took us a little while to kind of sort through that and actually even get her into the eating disorder clinic, which happened in early December. And by then I see all the signs, like her heart rate was low. I mean, it was very, very serious. And we walk out of at the intake, they come to us and say, we're trying to decide if she needs to go inpatient or partial hospitalization, or if we can just manage her with an intensive outpatient program. And I'm like, cue big tears, right? Because the program they put in my hand for even the lowest level was 30 hours a week of appointments at Children's Hospital. So, I've not yet grieved my dad. My marriage is a mess. And now my daughter is being admitted. So, critical moment in my life, right? So at that point, you're just all in because you're like, oh my goodness, how did it get this bad right in front of our eyes? And we can keep this story short because I can share. I wrote a big long blog post on this that has all the signs, all the symptoms, things that moms should be looking out for, dads should be looking out for, coaches should be looking out for, because anorexia, eating disorders, really attack the best and the brightest kids. They're straight A students, they're top athletes, and they're hard workers. And this perfectionistic tendency just gets out of hand and manifests into an eating disorder. So that is at lorimercercto.com/anorexia if you want to link to that.
Yep, I'll put a link to that in the show notes. And I've read your post and it was just so well written. It was so informative, and there's just so much that I didn't know about it. So I appreciate just the honesty and the transparency with that.
And what I could say to the women in your audience about this, both for your daughters, but also for yourselves, because some of my eating practices that we're taught are healthy, right? Like, it's a diet culture. It's a fad diet culture. Any talk about size, weight, how clothes fit, skipping lunch and eating a protein bar, which was my go-to all the time, is not a healthy practice to be demonstrating to our daughters. They face so many more demons in this place than we ever did because of social media, right? So, I mean, the images are just in front of them all the time. And what I learned going through this with her was, even as a woman, things I was saying and doing that were not healthy behaviors for, my own self-worth, my own caring for my body. And I think it's important for all of us to be aware of that. It demonstrates wrong thinking in our own minds and lack of self-worth and lack of self-confidence, and really getting on the right page with those topics. It's going to make you a better mom, a better wife, a better business owner, a better employee, end to end, all of those things. So obviously it's a passion on my heart now. She's doing well now. We still have, we're still an outpatient. We will be for a long time. We still have some relapses. Relapse risk is big.
You say in your article that in adolescence it is curable, so it might not be something that she has to monitor for the rest of her life. Is that right?
I hope so. I mean, if you catch it at the right ages, because as parents, we can still sit with them and reinforce better behaviors and make new patterns. Whereas if your child is 17, 18 off to college, they now have to deal with it on their own. I mean, you can help them, but like an 18-year-old, you can't even get their health records, right? They have to sign off to make sure you get their health records. So the moms that I see fighting this with their 18, 19-year-olds, they don't have as much possibility to intervene and help. And also, again, the neural pathways are more set and formed. So we don't even use the word healthy, because healthy starts to even have the wrong connotation, right?
It's a trigger.
Yeah, it's a trigger. It's a balanced approach to how you look at your body, fitness, what you eat, what you put into it. And honestly, for all, like, you and I are probably similar. Like, we study parenting, we study children, we study like things we want to do to make our homes better and healthier and our kids' lives better.
Yeah.
Eating disorders never crossed the list. All the sports we've played for all the years, not a single coach talked to us parents about eating disorders. So it really jumped up and surprised us. And obviously I'm passionate about getting that message out there a little sooner.
I agree. It's not something that's crossed my path. I think, Lori, I probably saw an after school special when I was, 12. And that's been my interaction with it. So I really appreciated your information and the message that you have and just getting it out there to people that it is going to affect, like you said, the best and the brightest.
Yeah, it really does.
I'm so glad that Maya's doing good now.
Yes, me
It's
too.
in a good spot.
And one of the other beautiful things, on this side of it is that our relationship would not be what it is if she hadn't had that journey. I can't even say anything more about that. It's the best thing to have your teenage daughter close to you.
That's a wonderful, wonderful positive from that situation.
Sure is.
Lori, let's talk about Lori Mercer, CTO. CTO, Creative Technology Optimist.
Right.
I love that.
Right. A little play on the corporate, Chief Technology Officer.
Absolutely. Talk about what your business is doing now. What is a virtual professional?
Yeah. So the online business world, you guys, is the wild, wild west. I mean, everyone is making it up as they go. It changes so rapidly. And it really, there's so much opportunity, but there's also so much failure and so much frustration, and so much opportunity for virtual work because everybody needs somebody to, write copy, make graphics, manage their customer service. I mean, there's so many elements that need support where you can't hire a full-timer, but you need that specialized talent. So there's truly never been a better moment to enter the virtual work world. And I say virtual professional, not virtual assistant, because I see these skills as very much tied to, what you would have done in your corporate professional job or what you might have been trained for. And it is professional skills. It does take project management, strategic decision thinking, an awareness of how to interact with people in a customer support scenario. It's not just, I'm an assistant and I'm flipping something out during my kids' nap time. Like that's out there, but it doesn't cut it. It is really professional work. And those who can embrace that and take their skills and offer services at the professional level can command money that is as much, if not more than a corporate salary. So I really stress the virtual professional side of things. I am both a virtual professional myself. So I have one-on-one clients that I do gifts in my skill set for. So for me, that would be business strategy, technology implementation, marketing strategy kinds of things. And then I will source a team for them, a team of their own virtual professionals to, keep their website maintained, to run their membership community, to run their online course. I also, because as I got into this, I realized what a lack there was in quality VAs and quality virtual workers, that I built my own training program. And I really wanted to train them up to standards that, both honor your own skills and gifts, honor the clients that you're providing the work to, and really just honor the work that's done. I mean, how many websites have you visited that it's, it doesn't look nice, the copy's bad, there's misspellings, or, you buy a course and they say you're going to get this, but then it doesn't come. And you can tell that the business owner is just frantic and frazzled for good reason, because it's really hard work. So I have this passion in my heart to take, this professionalism that we all trained on and developed in our corporate world and apply it into the online business space. Does that make sense?
It does, yeah. You say you take on clients.
Mm-hmm.
What kind of people do you work with?
Right. So, for those of you who want to do this, I want you to remember how this started. It started with that crazy path of, am I going to do direct sales? Am I going to build HTML websites? Then I took the detour and built my own firefighterwife.com. And then one by one, the clients started coming to me. So they were also in the online space. They were other mom bloggers who kind of had built a big following and were just overwhelmed with all the work that needed to be done. And from there, I built a network through speaking at some events, or even just attending events. You don't even have to speak at first. You just attend, events with other people in this online business space and make those connections. So the kinds of clients I work with, for me right now, they generally have multiple hundreds of thousands of followers on Facebook or Instagram, but more Facebook for me. they have an online course or an online membership of some sort, and they want to spend their time and their days writing or doing videos in their subject matter. And they need somebody then to manage all those moving parts of an online business. We're going to launch a new course. Well, the course has to be built. The free opt-in has to be built. We have to drive traffic to it. Producing content for an online business is a factory, systemized kind of production system where you have to take their creative genius, their intellectual knowledge, and turn it into all these bite-sized pieces of content that live on social media, live on the blog, live on YouTube, wherever they are.
I'm learning about all that right now.
I bet you are.
Yeah.
So there's just a ton of work out there in this virtual professional space. And my business now, at one point I was only doing 3 or 4 one-on-one clients because that was about all I could handle. And right now I have, I'm looking at my list in front of me, and I had 12 in the month of November. So,
wow.
Right. So I've built up my team to help handle that. I now have added some project managers. I also added a personal assistant and a house manager, which is a whole other fun topic for how I'm getting life done right now. But you can scale this business, and I have what you would call right now a micro agency where I can step in, propose how we're going to implement something for a client. I step in for the strategic, the visionary, the creative pieces, but my team does all the detailed back and forth, the heavy lifting, the implementing. I come back in for a quality check, strategic guidance, but that's kind of the role that I'm playing right now. But you can see how many positions there are out there for people who can do even one piece of that.
And your second piece is the online training. If someone is interested in this, they're a stay-at-home mom and they're thinking, yes, I've been waiting for something like this. How do they go about finding you, and what might they get if they enrolled in a course of yours?
Right. So I like to call myself a mentor. I'm not a big fan of the word coach, and also because that word mentor, like we said at the beginning, is really near and dear to my heart. So there are one-on-one programs that you can work with me. That's at virtualworkmentoring.com. And if you're just getting to know me, just go to lorimercercto.com. There's all kinds of information. There's some start here's. There's some free resources to download. Where do I find my first clients? How do I get started? The newest thing that I'm launching is at govirtualprofessional.com. And it's a starter kit. It will actually be mailed to your home, and it has the booklet, the trainings, the workbooks, the journal, all the steps to start your virtual professional business. But I'm pricing it at the price point that is reachable by so many women. Because you see this in the online space, right? I'm a high dollar coach, blah, blah, blah. And that always hurts my heart because I'm like, not everybody can reach that level. And for women that want to make another $1,000, $2,000, $3,000 a month, there needs to be a way that I can reach them with this training. And that's a game changer for some families, right? Just to have a couple $1,000s a month that's really flexible from home.
Absolutely.
So govirtualprofessional.com is my newest program. Those would be resources they can go to learn to do what I do and build up a business like this.
I love that, Lori. You are so encouraging and inspiring to me, like I mentioned in the beginning, and you continue to do that. I want to switch gears a little and just move into what your favorite 5 things are. You already alluded to the first, I think, hiring help and delegating well, which I want to hear some more about.
Yes. So you can build a business one-on-one, but it only goes to a certain level. And I reached a point that you would call death by a million paper cuts, right? If I'm touching everything. And the only way to do more is to grow your team. So I know a lot of people are like, oh, I can't afford to. I'm pinching pennies. I'm trying to do this really, really efficiently. But I always find that it's easier for me to go make another $500 than it is to even use the Ibotta app, right? I know a lot of people do that, or, clip coupons, whatever. For me, it's easier to go, how can I leverage my time better and go make another $500? And hiring help and delegating is one way to do that. So I'm excited to say that I just hired a house manager / personal assistant, somebody that comes to my house just 4 hours a week. And things like Like I had printer ink that has been sitting in my office for like 6 months that needs to be returned. And she did that errand for me and I got $100 back. I'm like, oh my gosh, you just paid for yourself already. I'm always about hiring.
That's great. More important things for you to do with your time. Yeah.
Yes. Okay. You want me to go through the list? The next one?
Sure.
Okay. I'm also very much about how our brain performs. Like I always want to be performing at my best. And Romans 12:12, right? Be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Science matches that scripture. And our neural pathways can be rewired. I'm not one to be all like, oh, mindset, wah, woo woo, blah, blah, all that stuff. It's not my thing. But those people are sort of on the right track, right? Because if you take that scripture and you take science and we know what can happen, I think it's very important to make sure that our brains are wired the right way. So one of my favorites is Dr. Carolyn Leaf. She is a Christian neuroscientist. And one of the first programs I did of hers way back in like 2012 was called the 21-Day Brain Detox. And it works. I just tell you, it works. It can break negative thinking patterns in your brain. Yeah, try it. My next one is fun. I love 21 Pilots. My kids love them. They are, if you're a parent of teens or tweens and you're looking for some good, clean pop music, we just love them. And, they grew up right around here in Lewis Center, actually.
Really?
Yeah. Did you know that?
I didn't know that.
They're Christians and they're not overtly Christian in their music, but if you know they're Christians and you listen to the lyrics, they're super powerful. All right. Lastly, on the brain performance kinds of things, meditation, like it really works. It really works to calm us. And I have always been looking for Christian meditation for a long time. I now use the Abide app and it's worth the premium upgrade is my opinion there. It walks you through a meditation that's scripture-based. And I never leave that without learning something about myself and what God's trying to tell me. So I love the Abide app.
I'm going to check that out. That sounds really good.
You can try them for free on YouTube. Like before you download the app, I think they have some free Abide videos on YouTube.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Well, Lori, you mentioned some different places people can find you. Can you do the wrap up with telling us?
Yes. So LoriMercerCTO.com is home base for all of that. If you want to get into virtual professional work like I do, one of my free resources is at virtualworkfinder.com. There's also govirtualprofessional.com. That's my new starter kit. And if you want mentoring, if you want to work directly with me, you can go to virtualworkmentoring.com. And if you happen to be a firefighter wife listening to this, you should go check out firefighterwife.com. The nonprofit's also called 24/7 Commitment, so 247commitment.com. And so you can find me on Instagram, Lori Mercer CTO.
Thank you, Lori. I will list all of that, everything that we talked about in the show notes if you didn't catch it. Lori, I am always inspired by what you're doing professionally, but I also appreciate your honesty and your vulnerability with talking about your personal life because I think it's so important.
Well, thank you. Thank you for letting me shed some tears. It's extra emotional day for me. And I'm like, awesome, I get to do a podcast. But you know what? That's keeping it real. That's how this life happens. So thanks for letting me share that with you.
Yeah, you sharing that and just your struggles about, being a mom and a wife and a newly single mom. And I think that will help other people. At the very least, they'll feel like they're not alone. And then hopefully you'll give them some great ideas and encouragement to move forward.
Well, I hope so. And my heart's especially tender for single mamas right now. So they need some encouragement. They should reach out.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Lori.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Friends, I hope you loved our conversation. You can find everything that Lori mentions on the show on girlstalkinglife.com in the show notes for this episode. And like I said, this is our last show for 2018. I will be back after the holidays with more guests, more stories, with more conversations to stir your soul. And if you have feedback, any suggestions or guest ideas for the show, I would love to hear them. Get in touch with me on Instagram at Girls Talking Life, the Girls Talking Life Facebook page, or email me at hello@girlstalkinglife.com. Remember, don't let the conversation stop when this show is over. Share your stories and start your own conversations with the girls in your life. Thanks for tuning in and have a Merry Christmas.